Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. Welcome to the Russellville City Council meeting. If you'll all rise, we'll be led in prayer by Brother Harry Comfort. I'm reading one name and seeing another face, and then we'll follow that with our pledge.
Let us pray. Lord, I pray for the leaders of Russellville, thanking them for their service to the community. I pray for your guidance and direction in this discussion and the business at hand, and that the decisions made here tonight are done in the best interest of the community, that unity and respect for one another always prevail. I ask for your hand of protection upon the men and women serving in our fire and police departments. Be with each family serving in our militaries around the world. Be with the mayor as he is tasked with providing leadership to the community. I ask each and everything in our name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all, and be seated, please. Okay. Everyone should have received a copy of the minutes from May. If there's no questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion for both or one? Both. Second.
So we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Finance report, Mr. McCohen.
Mayor, council, and citizens. Finance report for May. General fund, revenues were $1,101,850, 2.5% above our projections. Sales tax receipts were $776,777. Franchise fees and permits were $69,285. Total expenditures, $1,242,019, 0.68% below our projection. We received $157,498 more than expended. Street fund revenues, operations was $213,133, 4.23% below our projection. Sales tax receipts were $110,443. The new half-cent sales tax was $45,246. Street fund expenditures, $168,830, 9.86 below our projection. Sales tax improvements expenditures were zero. Capital was $28,926. Economic development revenues were $22,714. $17,401 was the new sales tax. $5,314 was interest, and they had no expenses. Capital assets revenues were $653,233. $541,173 new sales tax, $123,026 in grants. We had a negative $10,965 because of the interest transfer approved last month. Expenditures were $225,550. It was City Corp, Animal Shelter, Fire, Parks, Police, and Airport.
Any questions for Mr. McCohen?
Thank you.
For Mayor's report, what I thought we'd do is, we've got some exciting stuff that people have a lot of interest in, and yet it's in that difficult stage before you actually see it spring out of the ground. You can't drive by and take a look at it. People still have questions. Is this stuff happening? Is that going to happen? So I thought I'd have some reports on where we're at on some of our ongoing projects. Mr. Jones, you want to go first? Since you're up, why don't you?
Well, I believe y'all asked for a report on O Street. We have been working on finalizing the design on that project. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail unless you want me to, but this is the project that started out as the sidewalk trail from well, from the intersection of O Street and North Arkansas, Highway 7 and Highway 124. It was actually bid out a couple of years ago. After a public meeting on the project and a couple other meetings, this project has evolved into essentially a complete street project, including curb and gutter, storm drainage, trees, lighting, and concrete sidewalks on both sides of the roads. I have right now just the plans have been sent to the various utilities that will be affected by this project. I'm awaiting their final design and plans to proceed with some of the relocation work. It's not going to require a tremendous amount of utility relocation work, but it will require some. I think it's best at this point not to proceed with any kind of construction activity until we get some of that relocated. But one issue, I know there was some discussion about possibly relocating some of the overhead utilities underground on the south side of the road, and I did contact Entergy early on about that, and their cost alone on that would be I believe it was $1.2 million. So I guess I would welcome any input on that. I mean, my feeling at this point is that that's cost prohibitive. The project as it stands right now is roughly it's just south of $3 million, so that's where we're at. I'd be happy to answer any questions about it that any of y'all have at this point.
Does the O Street project still extend on out around to the interstate?
Yes, the limits of the project are from the and I meant to mention this as well. I'm working with the highway department on some improvements to the actual intersection of Highway 7 and O Street as well. But the project that I'm currently working on extends from the end of that intersection up to the bridge itself. Now it will taper into the bridge. I mean, the widening will actually end somewhere up there in the vicinity where Parker Road runs up into O Street right now. But we're going to reconfigure that intersection as well, set it up for eventually tying Reasoner into it, and with the Reasoner extension project that I've been working on as well.
Kirk?
Yes, sir.
Does this project include anything down Old Street where it veers off of, where Old Street goes straight and Highway 124 continues?
It includes, actually the sidewalk will run down that street. It will rework that intersection a little bit. There's not going to be any drastic changes to that. I am right now, the design I have lowers the grade of O Street, the Highway 124 corridor. It gets a little confusing the way O Street peels off there, but it will lower the grade of Highway 124, and where O Street ties into it, I am planning on trying to make that more of a T-type intersection rather than just kind of a pull-off ramp down the hill there. And again, the sidewalk at that point will drop off on that side, will drop off and follow that O Street. And part of this project would be extending that sidewalk along O Street in front of the apartments there, and then tie it into Parker Road, the Parker Road sidewalk system.
Good.
Mr. Jones, when do you expect to have a final design to put in front of us?
I'll have the final, the design right now is essentially finalized. There's some details. I'd be happy to, if y'all want to, by next month I could give you if you're just looking for a display or exhibit or something that you can kind of look at and see, where the sidewalks are. And, I'm at that point right now. I did not, I brought a set of plans, but I didn't really bring a presentation to make at this point, but I could certainly do that by next meeting. easily, or if any of y'all are interested and want to stop by, I'd be happy to roll out the plans and kind of show you what we're looking at there. But
Because at that point, you will be ready for funding, or the bid, starting that bidding
well,
process. And that
actually, again, what we need to do is I'm waiting on the utilities right now. There are some, and again, they're not major utility relocations. I think probably the biggest one is City Corporation. I know they're working on plans right now for that, but we do have some other utilities that need to be addressed as well, and I need to get all that worked out, obviously, before we bid it.
You want to touch on the White Oak drainage deal?
Absolutely. The White Oak drainage, we just opened bids today. That's a replacement repair work on a drainage system that is failing up on White Oak Lane off of Marina Road. I know, and some of y'all have probably received some phone calls, complaints, sinkholes and so forth. What's happening up there is we've got some large diameter metal pipe that is deteriorated. The bottom is essentially rusted out of it, and it started collapsing on itself. It's affecting the drainage capacity of that system, and we're planning on replacing that entire system down White Oak Lane. It is large diameter pipe. It's not a cheap, inexpensive fix. We're replacing it with a combination, under the roadways and in some of the areas where we had to use arch pipe, we're using concrete and our HDPE plastic pipe. So, and that project should get underway hopefully within 2 weeks. Is my plan. It will be somewhat disruptive to the residents up there, but we'll hopefully, try to get that in and out as quickly as possible. And
Thank you. Anybody else? Anything for Mr. Jones? Thank you, Kurt.
all right.
Mr. Hollis, I hear you had an exciting little meeting today.
Exciting drive to Little Rock.
Well, some of that too.
Councilman Eaton and I drove down and met with ETC this morning with Chad Weiser of Van Horn Construction. We went through a complete set of blueprints. They're not construction ready, but they were a complete set, and we went through all of the documentation manual. We looked at that. Mr. Weiser we both got copies and brought them back. We discussed, I think, some very good, it was a very good meeting. It lasted about 3 hours, and I know Bill will have, Mr. Councilman Eaton will have some comments possibly, but it was a very good meeting. There were a lot of things that we caught. We all had homework to do when we left. Mr. Weiser had some very good ideas and caught quite a bit on the plans that we think we're looking into now as for money-saving ideas on the project. I think that not only did they save money, but they'll end up with a better project for the city, and there'll be a better final result. Some of the things we looked at today, the columns, the piers, the finished concrete, all of the electrical, and it was a really good meeting, and I really think everybody contributed a lot, and I'm glad that everybody was there. And again, I know Chad Weiser's not here, but again, he really had some good insight into this. I think you're probably going to end up being a good project.
Did you get a feel for when we might be?
We're going to meet again. Yeah, yes, I do. I'm sorry. We're going to have another meeting July 9th here in Russellville at the Hughes Center. We should have a lot of those questions that we discussed today. Cast columns instead of poured. The pier question should be answered. Several of the questions should be answered at that meeting for us to start looking at moving forward with the construction phase. And I have not talked with Chad since the meeting to know the time frame, how long it will take him and Van Horn to go through the set of plans and to go through all the documentation. But, you know, documentation manual's pretty big, and so are the plans. So hopefully we will have all those questions answered on the 9th.
Good. Any questions for Mr. Hollis?
Mayor, I have two for Mr. Hollis. Were we not planning to have like a 50% budget review or something pertaining to this project, just to see where we were in correlation between the design, the project, and our budget? I know we had talked about that.
That's part of the contract deal,
Yeah.
is at 50%.
May I interject something here? I think it's going to require Van Horn Construction to review these before we can get to that point.
Okay. And that may be.
Yeah, they'll tell us when we're at the point where they feel comfortable getting that first price then.
Question number two, I actually got asked about this last night. Is this a 25-yard pool or 25-meter pool?
Right now, it's a 25-meter pool.
It's 25 meter. I think we're all getting phone calls about
Because
that.
I think the
Okay.
presentation we received in the USB drive stated yards potentially,
It might be in there.
and I think that's created a little bit of concern from some people that,
I'll have to check with them. I believe it was set up as meters.
It was set up as meters,
Yeah.
and it can be converted to a yard if that type of meat is involved.
let's check that, because I think the presentation they gave us, from what I understand, probably said yards.
Okay.
Actually, I was asked about it last night, and they contacted me today about it to double check on it.
And you know, I'm trying to stay out of it, so when they call me, I really didn't know the difference between meters and yards, but meters means a lot as far as swim teams go and competition versus yards.
Depends on which group it is.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, different groups use different.
I told her it was hard for me to answer because I didn't have any plans and I didn't know. So I was gonna ask you tomorrow, so
Okay.
tonight's better.
Tell them to call Mr. Hollis.
Thank you, Mr. Hollis.
Anything else? Mr. Eaton, you want to give us an update on the Veterans Park?
Yes, Mayor. There have been several meetings relative to the River Valley Veterans Coalition and the established building committee. We're working with Mr. Hollis in regard to preparation of letters for commitments that have been made for the various items associated with building the first phase of the park there, which will be the parking lot. Specifically, we have to have letters of commitment for things such as tree removal, grading of the area, material hauling, grading equipment that is to be donated, among other things, the asphalt to be placed and curbing, etc. And the reason for that, as Mr. Hollis has shared with us, is to ensure that there will be no things that would require the Corps of Engineers to be committed to complete this if something fell through. So we're working on those letters at this time and should have those within the near future. And that will be, like I said, the first phase will be the parking lot. And that should kick off before a great length of time.
Anybody got a question on that one? The other one, Chief, you got any update on Central? Or I hate to put you on the spot with that. We haven't discussed this, but. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll just give you a brief update on that. Tuesday, I had a meeting with the architect. and his assistants, and they are at the process of doing putting the final touches on a line drawing or diagram drawing. There's no actual architectural drawings at this point. It's just space relationships and with the site. And the last thing is that they have completed all the site analysis, the survey, and so forth with the subcontractor, Craft and Toll Engineering. That's where we're at. We're looking at getting a little bit, tighten the plan up, the idea up in about a month or two.
Excellent, thank you. The other one that I'll mention is Depot Park. We finally got all the bonds and all that stuff in place today, and Mr. Jones had the contracts to sign on it, so we're getting everything worked out with the utility companies. Contractors ready to go. Everybody knows that it's pretty critical that we get that completed before Fall Fest, and so it's going to be really busy downtown pretty soon. Should be turning dirt on that one, I would think, in the next couple of weeks, actually, so move on that. That's all that I have set up for mayor's report. Our department report this month is Brian Holstein, Community Development. Are you still here, Brian? Still here. Bless your heart.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and citizens of Russellville. I'm going to make this very brief. It's not to take away anything from the City Council agenda. My report is on business permits, and right at this time we have approximately 1,500 businesses in the City of Russellville, and at mid-year we have 46 new businesses for Russellville, and our collected is at $42,110. Also, in our permitting office, we as of the 6th month, we're at 71 single families for new construction, and the total permits received is payments is $13,163, and commercial buildings are at 40, and that's new buildings and remodels and additions, and that total cost is at $14,851.66. And the total cost of construction in Russellville at this 6th month is $12,472,578. With our electrical permits, we have pulled 95 electrical permits at $3,544. HVAC is at 67 with $2,150. Plumbing at 80 permits for $2,278, and that totals a total amount of 358 inspections for the City of Russellville. Also, total collected is for the month is $40,033.78. And just briefly to let you know kind of where we're at in our single-family subdivisions, commercial, and so on, where we're at today is we revitalized one of our R4 subdivisions, which is Trailer Park, and that's the Beavers Trailer Park subdivision with gated community. Also, on the east end of town, we have created another R4 subdivision, Trailer Park, and it's about 80% full at this point right now. With some new subdivisions for single family, we have up on Skyline, we have Riverstone, and there are 5 new upscale houses in that area. And Overland Park is just now breaking ground and starting. There's 4 new homes, and that's out on 12th Street. Also, we have some subdivisions that are just about 100%. They're filling up, so we needed these new subdivisions. One of them is Shiloh, which is in its 4th phase, and also Magnolia, which is it's filling up quite well. And then we have spotted single family in our older subdivisions, some single family lot developments still going on. In our multifamily, we're looking at, hopefully we'll see some multifamily development over on El Paso on a new tech apartment. Excuse me, not tech apartment. It'll be 4 student apartments, but it won't be owned by tech. Also, we're looking at on Marina a PUD development, which would be a very nice addition to Marina. Along with our new Millard Henry Clinic, we also are seeing some small clinics come in. We have Med Express, and we also have an urgent care, and they're both on both ends of town, which makes it real convenient for help. And also, we have 3 new dentist offices coming in. And food, I know everybody's interested in food, so I'll let you know that Chili's is fixing to open up. We'll have it at the end of the month, they'll be opening up. Also, Sumo's have been up and running for quite some time, and Steak and Shake is about 2 months out. Also, we have Tropical Smoothies. We're the old Egg Roll Express. I don't know if everyone knows where that was at, but we have a new smoothies going in there. And it's Tropical Smoothies, which will be an eating place and also for food, beverages. Also, we're looking at plans, and I'm about 90% on approvals for a new hotel, and that's the hotel is going to be Holiday Inn Express. We also have, we don't have plans yet, but I've been speaking with developers on some pre-construction on the motel out across from the interstate that used to be the Tech Motel ground. We have a real nice strip center on Parkway, the Reeves building. It turned out really nice. And our downtown revitalization is really looking good. We revitalized an old motel, and now it's apartments above and it's business strip below. It also has a food establishment in that. And we took USA Drug and busted it in half, and now we have Factory Connect and Dollar Tree in that area. Grace Manufacturing getting into industrial. We got some expansions in industrial also. We have a 30,000 square foot expansion for Grace, which is going to bring in some new employment. Also, we're looking at some expansions with Tabor. They're looking at another building to buy to do a little different development there that's not going to be the same thing they're doing now. And also, going back to the revitalization of downtown, we're looking at a really nice setup. It's in demo stage right now. It's going to be a dinner club, and it's going to be the old bank at the corner of Commerce and Main. It's going to be a 2-story dinner club. Be a very nice addition to the downtown area. And as I said before, I don't want to take away from a lot of the agenda for council, but if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Just so you don't get a whole bunch of phone calls, let me correct. That restaurant that is supposed to open, it's the end of July. Chili's.
What? Yeah, that's what. That's
End of July.
Okay, sorry.
Don't want everybody out there next week and blaming us because they don't have the doors open. They're coming along.
Excuse me. Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. Finance Committee, Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to apologize to everybody that came in for the 6 o'clock meeting. We were running late from our early Finance Committee meeting that we tried to get in and get done before 6 o'clock, but we did not make it. I do apologize for that. Mayor, we met twice this month as usual. On June 9th, we met, passed 3 things on your agenda here. Consideration of resolution authorizing the mayor, city clerk, treasurer of the city of Russellville to apply for an 80-20 grant with the Arkansas Department of Aeronautics on behalf of the Russellville Municipal Airport. Said grant, if awarded to the city, receive and spend said grant for taxiway extension. That was voted on, approved from the table, wasn't it?
That was on tonight's also.
It's on there.
I believe that.
You could do it as a motion though, and then the council could table it, right?
I believe that is on our agenda possibly by error. I would probably move that we need to push that back to the Finance Committee pertaining to Mr. Eaton's motion earlier in the Finance Committee. Offer your recommendation to wait until July for financial reasons. was in, so it needed voted on, that was in form of a motion,
Clean this up, Mr. Smith. What do we need to
or
do?
how?
Why don't you just make a motion to consolidate those two items, and then Mr. Eaton's previous action that was approved should take over?
Mayor, could you have him speak into his mic a little bit better?
I was just suggesting that maybe there should be a motion to consolidate the line item from the June 9th, as well as the one from earlier today. And then there's already been action taken on the one that was done today.
That is my motion is exactly what Mr. Smith just stated.
Great job.
Okay, and because that comes out of committee, we don't have to have a second on that.
That's correct.
All right. You heard the motion and the second to consolidate 1 and 6, 1 of the June 9th meeting and item 6 off of tonight's meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman.
Next on our list, and I apologize for that, it just hit me all of a sudden that was probably on there by error. But next item, consideration of resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk treasurer to sign a lease extension with Precision Applicators for Hangar 7E at the Russellville Municipal Airport. This was voted on, passed by the recommendation of the Finance Committee for approval or for consideration of approval at the council level, and that's in form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Item 3, consideration of resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk treasurer of the city of Russellville, Arkansas to consent to the assignment of a lease between the city of Russellville, Arkansas and Dow Chemical Incorporated to Blue Cube LLC. This again was voted on by the Finance Committee, recommendation for approval to the council, and that's in form of a motion.
You heard the motion. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, we also met tonight with a few items. Consolidated, we received an update on Fire Station number 3, the mold and remodel project. Appropriation was passed by the Finance Committee to bring before the council for approximately $83,000, which is on the spreadsheet that you should have before you.
That was the bid, but that's including a contingency, and I think what Mr. McCoy asked, can you give us that
Right.
number again?
Moving the 76,000
76,
from the
okay.
remodel, from our building remodel fund, and allowing him to pull the contingency out of general fund as needed.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that how you need? Okay.
And that was voted on, approved by the Finance Committee, recommendation to the full council in form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next item, consideration of resolution to authorize the mayor and city clerk to enter into an agreement for services with the Arkansas Valley Alliance for Economic Development. That was passed by the Finance Committee in a 2-to-1 vote for recommendation to the full council. The contract is before you with the details, and the motion was to pass the contract as presented before us. And that was passed by the majority of the Finance Committee and presented in the form of a motion to the full council.
Council, you heard the motion. Discussion?
Roll call.
There's been no motion.
Hearing no discussion. Mr. Wiley has asked for a roll call vote.
Mr. Tripp,
No.
Mr. Brown,
No.
Mr. Wiley,
No.
Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. Richard Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Freddie Harris,
No.
Mr. Stuber,
No.
Mr. Roberts.
Yes.
Motion fails.
Motion fails. Mr. Chairman?
Item 4, consideration of resolution of the City of Russellville, Arkansas relating to the acceptance of a bid for White Oak Lane storm drain system repairs by the Public Works Department to authorize the mayor and city clerk treasurer to execute agreement. This bid was, low bid was $270,050.50 to the local contractor, and that was passed in the form of a motion to present to the full council.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next, consideration of an ordinance setting up a permitting procedure for special events held in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, creating a special events planning committee, granting the authority for the special events planning committee to appoint a city events coordinator, repealing ordinance number 678, regulating parades. This was passed by the council, the finance committee unanimously to recommend to the full council for approval, and it was noted that it was just passed with no recommendation pertaining to the reading of the ordinance or anything like that. So my motion, if possible, I would like to amend it to say first reading
By
only.
title.
By title, short
Thank you.
explanation.
So the motion is to recommend reading, suspend the rules and read one time for the first reading, or suspend the rules and read by title only for the first reading only.
First of three readings.
First of three
First reading
readings.
only.
Probably needs a second since it's a suspension
Okay.
of it's a suspension
Second.
of a state law.
Okay. Mr. Tripp's motion, Mr. Eaton second. All in favor of the suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye.
In order to set up a permitting procedure for special events held in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, creating a special events planning committee, granting authority for the special events planning committee to appoint a city events coordinator, repealing ordinance number 678, regulating parades, prescribing a penalty, and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would repeal the old ordinance 678 regarding the use of the right-of-way in parades and set up a special events committee and also a position for a special events coordinator. It sets out definitions that would help the committee and the coordinator be able to classify the special events that are held in the city. The committee would be empowered to make rules and regulations so that the special events that are held in the city could be streamlined and hopefully offset the city's cost that are incurred usually by providing personnel to these events.
Any other discussion for tonight? As it stands in, we'll have a second reading on our July meeting and third in August.
Yes. Next on our agenda, Mayor, appropriation pass-through for police department, $1,050. That was passed unanimously, with recommendation of full council for approval.
Council, you heard the motion. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next, we received an update on the RFQ process for the master zoning code from Mr. Harris, and that was voted on and approved by the full committee, a recommendation to the full council, and that's in form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion to proceed with the RFQ. Any discussion? Hearing none, all say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next on our agenda for tonight was consideration of resolution to authorize or ratify the mayor and city clerk to enter into an agreement with Bob Hegel for services on the animal shelter, and that passed by full committee as recommendation to the full council, and that's in the form of a motion.
Council, you heard the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Last on our agenda was airport issue to award the notice of award to the contractor for the runway extension. That was voted on and passed by the full committee. Its recommendation to the full council, and that's in form of a motion.
You heard the motion. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Mayor, that concludes our report for this month.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. Mr. Stuber, anything from the Personnel Committee?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. We'll move into old business. Resolution requiring rehab by agreement for 408 South Arkansas Avenue. Holstein, I believe you got a little bit of news for us.
Mr. Frankhouse is not here tonight. He's in California. And he told me he had a verbal with a architect to do the plans. His architect is Bob Hegel. Bob Hegel called me at the end of the day today and said, that's all there was, it's just a verbal conversation. So we have no contract signed.
Remind me what we did on this. Was it, we tabled it last month to give him time to get with an architect? Because it was gonna take more than the standard 180 days. We felt like it would take more than the standard 180 days.
Yes. Mr. Hegel told me tonight, that, just before the meeting, that at best, it would be 6 weeks out for him to start plans.
Move we approve.
Second.
You heard the motion in the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mr. Holstein. Unfinished number 2, consideration of an ordinance prohibiting nuisance odors occurring in the city. This is the second reading. Need a motion to suspend the rules and read the second reading.
Yes. That'd be great.
Mr. Wiley, a second.
Second.
Mr. Roberts. All in favor of the motion to suspend the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
An ordinance prohibiting nuisance odors occurring in the city of Russellville, Arkansas, prescribing a penalty, establishing definitions, setting up a procedure to receive and investigate odor complaints, empowering certain officials to enforce this ordinance, exempting certain entities and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would set out the definitions needed to deal with nuisance odors that are occurring within the city. It would make unlawful acts as prescribed, as further described within this ordinance. It would set up or designate that a line be set up with code enforcement to take complaints of any time the citizens or residents of the city of Russellville want to complain about what they believe is a nuisance odor, and also powers the code enforcement official to check out the complaints that's received at the code enforcement office. Sets up 2 different tracks of enforcing a complaint, either by subjectively through a certain number of complaints received and being checked out by the code enforcement official, or also objectively through a cytometer that the code enforcement official would make a reading of.
May I comment on something here at this point? I'm not real sure that our particular process that we have right now in reporting online these offenses that occur. I would like for us to look at that, Mr. Mayor, and make sure that we've got it as user-friendly as we possibly can. May possibly get some feedback from our IT folks on if there's something that we can do to make that as simple as possible. So whether we move forward with this thing as it is or not, I think it's very important that we do this at this time.
Are you saying we should be documenting our complaints on the internet, on
Yes.
Facebook?
Yes,
I have not been doing that. So.
And capturing that some way. Right now, there is a way through the city website that you can go in and make that report. However, it does not capture those numbers of reports or whatever, the way this is set up through our Civic Plus type of information that we're using.
I think we all will agree it's been very bad the last few weeks.
Yes.
But what,
So,
I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to say if we can look at that to possibly clean up or improve, Mr. Mayor, I would.
That's so we can
We
have
can.
a good record of what's been reported.
Yes, ma'am.
We stumbled through one yesterday. If
Uh,
Ms. Jackie Moore and I can get together and talk, are you coming down to speak on that? While she's coming down, we have two citizens that have signed up to speak to this issue. Mr. L.J. Fauberg and Mr. Jake Jones. Mr. Fauberg, would you like to go first?
Thank you, Mayor, and members of council. I came here to expound on that smell, not realizing it's on the agenda for tonight. I think it's time that you guys got to quit sitting on your thumbs and did something. Last night, I'm not the advocate for the people out where I live. I live on Neptune, which is south of Sequoia School. I received 8 phone calls, 3 from the Skyline, 3 from the Neptune Street area. That smell was so bad over there, you couldn't even go outside the door. It was sickening and smelly. And there's something that's holding you people back. I don't know what it is, but this city is big enough that you could pass an ordinance to stop something like that, and you haven't done it. Now, from what I understand, this has been going on for years, and it's time that you did something. I held off with my people that I have meetings with. They want to sue you. Mr. Mayor, you and I talked about that. They're ready to bring a lawsuit. They can't stand this smell anymore, and I don't know how everybody else is. This gentleman over here got up and talked a little while ago. How is this smell going to go along with all the good stuff he's putting out that's going to happen here in our city?
Sir, we are working on an ordinance right now.
How long have you been working on this? This smell has been around for years.
Well, this is
Why haven't you done anything
this is
before
the
that?
second reading of this ordinance, and we're going to read it 3 times, and then we're going to take action on it.
Is that going to shut him down?
Well, I hope it does something.
What ordinance are you going to use?
We can get you a copy of the proposed ordinance. Now, our goal is not to shut anybody down, and it's not directed directly at one plant, although that's where all the complaints come from. This ordinance is trying to be crafted so that it applies to any plant that generates nuisance odors in the future. And as Mr. Wiley said, this is the second of 3 readings.
Don't you have to put that ordinance into law before you do that?
That's what we're in
That's what
process of.
we're doing now.
Good law,
So how long is this going to take?
With the next,
July meeting.
next month, we'll pass this ordinance, and then it'll go into effect.
And at that time, you can shut them down?
No.
At that time, it's their choice if
it's-
they want to shut down. What it gives us is the authority to make them reach standards, subjective standards that can be measured based on complaints that they have to, they and all other plants have to meet.
Yeah, we,
Line between you and me, Mr. Mayor, we're burning the phone line up.
sir, you can't just go out there and shut someone down automatically. They've got laws same as we do.
How long it's going to take before you do shut it down?
Well, I'd give that over to the attorney.
Yeah.
It's going to take more than just July meeting. There's going to have to be due process for anybody that has a property interest.
Well, I know it takes a while for the ordinance to go through it, I know that.
Mhm.
Well, thank you.
The ordinance will go through within 30 days. Actually, the ordinance will probably enact the emergency clause, or I would think the council
Yeah.
would consider that. So the ordinance would go in, then we have to start making our case and finding them. And we've had several conversations lately that indicated that there might be potential buyers out there. They thought they could run it better. Those have all dissolved in the last week or so. I haven't heard any updates on that, and so I think the council is dedicated to doing it.
With what he was bringing up just a few minutes ago, and the smell that we have to put up with every day.
We agree with you.
3 miles
Yeah.
away from the plant.
We agree with you, sir.
We agree, but effective law takes, you gotta be careful putting it in, and I think that's what the council's trying to do.
Thank you.
So the July meeting, I would expect the ordinance to be
Mayor.
voted on.
Mayor,
May I?
Yes.
Or
let's-
Mr. Stewart first?
at the end of the day, are we not going to need some standard that we compare that odor to, like in a noise ordinance, you know, if it reaches so many decibels or what, I may not even have the right word. You gotta, you know, you do, you know, they gotta quieten it down. Are we not going, I mean, are we gonna be able to rely on the human nose here to
I think that's a better question for Mr. Smith,
Uh-huh.
and probably by all of us.
It is one method that can be used, but there's a certain threshold based on the number of complaints, plus also the code enforcement official checking it out to verify those complaints to see if there is an odor, and he will have to characterize it best he can. The second is using some type of scintometer, which would give you an objective reading, and if it goes over a certain ratio, then that ratio, if it exceeds it, would be deemed to be offensive and be in violation of the ordinance.
do we not need to establish what that is?
It's in the ordinance,
It's in the ordinance?
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Tripp?
Mayor, a couple things quick on this, just for clarification purposes, and the gentleman walked out, but this enacting is based upon the council adopting it, so I wanted him to be sure that that was not necessarily a foregone conclusion, that it does take the vote of, you know, this 8-member body for that to happen, and that the normal process is that an ordinance goes through 3 readings for due diligence for everybody's benefit. And then secondly, and on top of that also, and you hit on this very well, my intent in addressing this has nothing to do with losing jobs. My intent in addressing this is that we've had Mr. Townsend, I believe was his name, came here and he told us how old it was and he'd never been in a plant with this many problems and so many things like that. And what we're wanting them to do is to upgrade, to improve their operations. We want them to be a community partner. We want them to grow, expand their jobs. We don't want them to cut their jobs, but we owe it to the citizens of Russellville to represent them. Yes, that plant was there before the city expanded and grew that way, but when we can smell it on West Main was here when that plant, you know, the center of town was here when that plant was built and started operation. So, and so when you can smell it in downtown Russellville, there's an issue. And we're not after jobs as far as I'm concerned. We're after getting their attention, working with them, which we've been attempting to do for at least 2 years now, since Mr. Eaton was mayor, I believe in September of 13 at least is when we started this process. And we want them to be a community partner. That's all we're asking.
You're absolutely correct, Mr. Tripp, and to that end, they have been invited to participate in the development of this ordinance. To this point, they have not availed themselves of that offer, but as far as I know, it still stands. They could come in and tell us what will, you know, what things might make it easier for them to operate, but still make the improvements that the citizens expect. But I'll restate that to them if you'd like for me to. Any other comments on the odor issue?
Was there someone else that signed up to speak?
I'm sorry, yes, there was. Mr. Jones?
Lynn.
I just got a couple of questions about the ordinance itself. One is, y'all are saying rendering plant stinks. How can you prove that it is coming from that plant? Your own sewer plant is 3/4 of a mile from the facility. Stella Jones is a mile south of the facility. They are surrounded by industries that put off their own smell. How are you going to determine which facility is smelling? Like the gentleman that was here said he smells it 3 miles away. Is that not, could not that be the sewer plant
No, sir.
or one of the others?
No, sir.
Are you sure?
That's why we're,
Drive by.
Excuse me, let's let Mr. Smith answer that. I think
that's why the code enforcement official will go out and make an investigation, and he will pinpoint it. And if it's not coming from the plant, when he goes to the property line, then he will try and find whatever the smell is emanated from. So yes, we will have people that will be there that will have do an investigation, conduct personal knowledge of the situation so they can report to the city whether or not where the odor is coming from.
Also, another provision you have in the ordinance, you're exempting the sewer plant. It puts off odor. How can you exempt your own entity or a subsidy of your entity and not anybody else? How is that legal to say, well, yeah, they smell, but they're not going to follow under this ordinance?
Because it would create a situation in which the city's property would be basically, we would be in effect fining the city's property. So
well, is there not going to be some kind of retribution of them smelling and along with the others?
The city government could talk to the managers of the city's property under the lease and tell them if there's an issue that needs to be corrected or that the lease could be looked at again.
Okay. I just want to make sure it's a fair sweep across the board because I've heard lots of people say that the sewer plant smells a lot worse than the rendering plant does. And I've had several say that what used to be Thompson, Stella Jones, that Crisso smell is considerably worse than what the rendering plant puts out. So I just want to see that everybody's treated fair. I've even had people come to me and say that ConAgra, the spices that they put out, irritates people. Well, we know they're the biggest employer in Russellville. We want to make sure that everybody gets treated fairly. And I know that people are not going to call and complain about the sweet smell of fried chicken from over at ConAgra, but to some it's just the same nuisance as what they're doing at the rendering plant. So you might consider all this on this ordinance. You're going to be affecting a lot of businesses if you go out and start fining $1,000 a time. That's the bottom line. That's people's jobs. If they have to pay these fines, they may think about whether they want to relocate or something instead of trying to improve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mayor, I'd like to address something that gentleman just said, and I forgot to say it a while ago. I agree with him that I have a little bit of a concern with the ordinance as written, that I'm not sure that we need to exclude ourselves, but we will address that as this process progresses. Said I'm not sure that that we should be excluding ourselves, but we can address that as this process progresses forward.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Can we listen to Lynn about the reporting?
I was just going to mention that currently what we have under the mayor's corner is the ability to make a report with the agency in Little Rock. However, we can open up a forum and a poll and allow our citizens to input, and we can track that information. So all of that is available to us.
Would you do that, Lynn? Can
Sure.
you do that? Thank you.
Do we need some kind of action, or just have Mr. Mayor tell her to get it done?
Tell Mr. Mayor can tell her to get her done.
Thank you.
I think the council just told her to get it done, so. And she never has to be told twice. She's very good. If there's nothing else on item 2, item 3, discussion of supplying water to the athletic fields. It's listed as discussion. Is there a will of the council on this item?
I just have one comment on this, Mr. Mayor, since it's discussion. I'd like to see that the Parks and Recreation Committee meet with the Soccer Association for some kind of a recommendation to us as a joint concern there. And I would make that in the form of just an ordinary motion if I
Could I second that?
Could that?
With an amendment of that, let's have that back to us by next month if possible?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
That should be
To am-
easy to do.
to amend
I
that.
think they are already trying to set up a meeting. Is it right? Do you know?
I believe so. I would like to ask that in that meeting, Alderman Eaton made a statement last month that really resonated with me, and, you know, instead of to look at alternative sources for the soccer field, for a long-term solution, not just the water bill, but something that I didn't think about is a very good idea is a well. And I don't know what how feasible that is, but I think it's certainly worth looking into. It's a very wet area on the south side. It's so close to the river. I would imagine that there would be water down there. And that could be a capital improvement that we look at doing that would solve this problem for years to come.
Anybody else?
Have you thought about building a pond?
I don't know, but the area at the back of that property, we've got a pretty good sized park there that doesn't seem like it because the very back of it is a wetland. I know we're trying to keep the beavers from damming up the culvert that goes under the road back there, and so we'll see if we can get all of that information put together. Yeah.
At this point, we did have a motion and a second on that too.
You want to restate your motion, Mr.
What I recommended was that we have the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Soccer Association meet for a recommendation on this, and as amended at Mr. Tripp's request by July, so we can consider this and move on.
Okay. And we do have a second on that. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, at this point in time, if we water it, out of the public water system, what's the estimated cost on that?
Well, June, we're okay on. July, we may have to go out and pump water out of there for June so they can play. July and August, we figured $4,000.
How much?
$4,000 for the month of June and $4,000 for the month of August. Those are our two biggest months to water. If y'all remember, last month, soccer said if we would get through the summer, when they began play, they would take over the watering. That's what Richard stated, their president, and that would be September and possibly October.
Do you already have a sprinkler system in place?
Sprinkler system's in place, it's ready to go, set up. We just didn't fund the amount of water.
Anything else?
Is there any grant money for anything like that?
Usually not, in recreation parks, there's usually not grant money for operations. It's usually for capital improvements. I have not heard of any for water.
What about an infrastructure improvement, capital improvement grant, as Mr. Brown stating, for like a well system,
That could be looked at. There is a possibility we could do the well. I'd be hesitant on a pond around the playing field area because I think that could be a safety issue with the number of kids out there. And when you start looking at the back area, the first 13 acres of that back area is a wetland. So you can't really drain a wetland, I don't believe. So it would have to be on further back, but there is a large area on further back, right against the fence of International Paper, that is not in the wetland area.
Have you got adequate public water on the site right now? I mean,
Yes, sir. We have adequate water to water the facility. It's just the amount of it is pretty grand when you're talking. The sprinkler system we have is a pretty large system. It's 6 different systems, and each one of those 6 systems has 4 or 5
Zones?
zones. So you're talking a lot of water. When you start watering, you're talking 24 zones. You start doing that, 20 minutes a zone. That's a long time to water. We usually do it in a 2-day period, and we do it through the evenings when we did it, or when it was being done.
Any other discussion on that? We'll get that meeting set up. You heard the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We'll get that set up. Thank y'all.
Thank you. New business 1, consideration of an ordinance defining mobile food vendors and related terms. That's sponsored by Alderman Richard Harris. Would you like to speak to that?
Sure, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I've got,
I've been corrected. We need a motion to suspend the rules or to.
okay, well, I'll make a
Or to
motion
read the whole
to
thing.
suspend the rules,
They'll be here a while.
read for the first time, title only,
First
with
reading.
a, that's true, with a, just short description of the ordinance.
Second.
That second was Mr. Eaton. All right, you heard the motion to suspend the rules. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
An ordinance defining mobile food vendors and related terms, regulating mobile food vendors and mobile food vending practices, prohibiting certain actions of mobile food vendors, setting safety requirements, creating vending districts, prescribing a penalty, and for other purposes. This ordinance, if passed, would regulate mobile food vendors. It would define what a mobile food vendor is. It would create exceptions to other similar things such as snow cone stands. It would set out a list of safety requirements either through the setup at the mobile food site or through the use of certain equipment. It would prescribe a penalty, and it would let the pre-existing mobile food vendors stay in their current location unless they move, and then the ordinance would apply to them.
Discussion?
Discussion, yes. I have a copy of a magazine here that City of Distinction 2014, Quality of Life winner, Russellville, Arkansas. And Russellville, Arkansas was awarded this last year because of our street enhancements and benefits. The thing that I want to point out is there's a quality of life associated with Russellville winning an award of that nature. You know, a standard of quality in Russellville should be commensurate with our desire to enhance the quality of life in Russellville and entice business and residential development. And in order to do that, you know, we've got a good presentation from Mr. Holstein earlier this evening about the amount of activity going on in Russellville. We've got an ordinance in front of us to try to address some concerns with odor issues. But in my mind, we also have some other issues that need to be addressed. At this point in time, Russellville has no ordinance that would restrict or provide jurisdiction over mobile food vendors. It is not the intent of the ordinance to run anyone out of business, to run anyone out of Russellville, but to establish some guidelines for safety and health of the consumer, and to allow Russellville to maintain and enhance the quality of life in the community. So that's what this ordinance is all about. We had a few years ago, we had within the last year a mobile food vendor on one of our main thoroughfares that sat there for about 5 years with grass growing around them. It was a camper trailer with spray paint on it, and they sat there for about 5 years. And it was an eyesore, it was an embarrassment to the community, and this ordinance will try to address that going forward.
We do have 2 citizens that have signed up to speak to this issue. Mr. Parkhurst, would you like to go first? Parker, would you like to speak first?
Actually, I would like Al to speak first.
Al, Mr. Martin, would you step to the microphone, please?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor and fellow members of the council. We appreciate the opportunity to share our concerns regarding this ordinance. From my perspective, there are 3 issues that I'd like to speak to. And the issues that concern me most are the ones that require that we move our trailers or food trucks every 6 months. The cost to that is pretty substantial. To disconnect from power, move your trailer, and the other issue is trying to find a location to set up in. Your location, you need it to have high traffic area so that you have visibility. It needs to have parking. It needs to have access to water, sewer, power, and not all locations have that. So when you're asking us to move, it may sound rather simple, but it is not. And the other side of that is that what benefit is there to asking us to move every so often? If somebody has a concession truck or trailer that they're not maintaining, then there's got to be another area in which you can address that issue and get them to correct the issue. But asking everybody to relocate every 6 months, it doesn't accomplish any of the objectives in the preamble to the ordinance. It's not going to help the community. It's not going to help the people. It's not going to make it any safer. So what is the objective? Where is the benefit to requiring, right now there's only about 8 concession trailers that I'm aware of that this ordinance will apply to, and to enact this, requiring everybody to move, it's not going to make their area any better, any nicer looking by people moving from every 6-month period to a new location. And again, I would guess that to move the electrical alone is probably in the neighborhood of around $600 to $1,000 to disconnect from your power and go reconnect in another location. And as I said, there are many sites that don't have transformers nearby on a pole that Entergy can connect you up to. It has to have that in order for you to hook up to that power, especially if you're using 220, 240 voltage, if you require that. Another issue that is of concern for me is that we're being told that the picnic tables or any tables or chairs that we set up out there for our customers to use, that we can't set up a table now. And I don't see the benefit to saying that we can't set it up. I understand that there should be within the ordinance something that tells us that we have to maintain the area, keep it mowed, maintain picking up any of the trash that is around the area and that, so that it looks respectable, but not to just say you can't have that. Again, I don't see where that benefits the community at all. It doesn't make it look any better just because there's not a table there, as long as that area is well maintained. And then the third issue is that the ordinance says that food concession trailers cannot have any signage out there to market their products or to inform the community about the products that we offer. But yet, other businesses do it all the time. The ordinance says that we have to have it on the trailer itself, with the exception of one A-frame sign. And yet, there are banks, there are many businesses that have people out there holding signs and trying to get your attention to use this tax service or the other tax service to get your hair cut, but we can't put signs out. If you're going to put that in the ordinance, then it's got to be fairly applied to other businesses also. We should be able to market our products and to market our stands to the community just like everybody else is able to do. And there are banks that are doing this. There are, you know, there's a lot of different businesses that have signs up. And so if you're going to enforce that, if you're going to put a stiff penalty for people that don't comply and only enforce that to mobile food concession trailers, then that's rather unfair to those of us that have the trailers. We're trying to be good members of the community. I think most of us maintain our trailers and make them presentable. We try and sell a good product, and the community actually will determine if we don't have a clean concession trailer and the community, when they come up, a member of the community or a customer comes up and sees that our concession trailer is dirty or that the quality of the food is not good, they can put us out of business quicker than anything else. They just won't continue to use our products or to visit us and buy our products. And if we don't have that, we're not doing this altruistic. We're trying to and make some money, and it benefits the community. We spend a lot of that money, if not 90% of that money, here in this area. I know that I do. I have to use plumbers, I have to use electricians and carpenters and that. So anyhow, that's the three areas that I wanted to address and would like you to reconsider in the ordinance. It's not anything against the ordinance itself. I think it's a necessary thing, but just especially the one where it calls that we got to move every 6 months. I just don't see any benefit anywhere. It doesn't make it safer, doesn't make it more enjoyable to look at. It just is onerous on the owners of the concession trailers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Mr. Parkhurst, do you want to add?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council, for having me. Anyway, I need to address Mr. Harris on part of this.
Can't hear you.
Okay, speak.
Turn the mic
Turn it up a little
please,
bit.
sir. Thank you.
I need to speak to Mr. Harris on part of this because he brought up this magazine and said the reason we're doing this is for the improvement of the city and all of this. Well, in our last meeting, he admitted to everybody in the public meeting that this was his own personal agenda. This had nothing to do with anything else but his personal agenda. He brought up the fact he didn't like the yellow trailer down there on 64. That was part of his personal agenda. He said that's what bothered him. We don't have a bunch of people that has complained about these food trailers. I haven't heard of one person that's come to the city council to complain and say, we don't like these food trucks and they're nasty and they're dirty and everything else. I'm from Steve's Snack Shack, and those that haven't eaten there, it's your loss, okay? But the ones that have know that I have a clean place, okay? And they come back. If I had a dirty place and I had bugs and I had everything else that was not right, nobody would come back and I wouldn't stay there, okay? Because commerce is commerce, okay? People are going to pay for a good product and they're not going to pay for a bad product. Now, I've got so many things in this thing that I've tore apart, but there are going to be 3 meetings before this is done. Am I correct, Mayor?
As it stands right now, it would be 3 readings.
3, all right.
Yeah, there will be at least one more.
All right. I've got this tore apart, but I honestly think that the ordinance itself should be thrown out and put somebody that's not biased to draw up an ordinance. I have no problem against an ordinance, but this was drawn up by a very biased man, okay? This was his personal agenda, had nothing to do with the people that elected him. That's what he's here for, is to do the people's business, not his own personal private business. And that's what this man is doing, okay? I don't think I should be fined $1,000 for doing something that a restaurant does every single day and not get fined for it. And that's in this ordinance, okay? And Mr. Harris, in the last meeting, I wasn't there. I sent my daughter, my granddaughter, and my pastor's son. And I was on the cell phone. And when I was speaking, you were laughing and rolling your eyes and disrespecting me. My granddaughter, 12 years old, I sent her so she could see what a public meeting was like, you know. She's a straight A student. She comes to me and she says, Papa, that man was rolling his eyes and laughing like a child. Laughing at you. You owe my granddaughter an apology. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, that was in the paper as well.
All right. Council, does anybody else have anything to say, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, I'd like to address a couple of the comments. I can't address the personal attacks because, you know, if I roll my eyes, I certainly owe you an apology. But I would like to address a couple of the substantial comments associated with the movement of the truck every 6 months. I think what it boils down to is there's a significant cost associated with setting up electrical power at these facilities. And I get that. But when you set up a permanent power supply at your facility, are you still mobile? Or now you a fixed, established restaurant? And if you're fixed, then there's a different set of guidelines associated with your activities than if you're mobile. So that concern was expressed in the 2 public meetings that we did have. And if you'll remember the last meeting, and if you'll read the latest ordinance, what we did was we said, you know, we acknowledged that there was no maliciousness or ill intent by those vendors out there that are currently in business when they established their business at the current location. And since there was no ordinance driving their activities, you know, they established permanent electrical facilities. So what we did was we went back into the ordinance and we developed a grandfather clause to allow those individuals, those businesses that are already in progress, the ability to stay where they are. However, going forward, we felt like it was necessary to ensure that a mobile vendor is indeed a mobile vendor and not a permanent restaurant. If you want to be a permanent restaurant, we have rules and guidelines associated with that. The picnic tables, I'd have to go back and look. I haven't looked at the ordinance in the last day or two. I don't think we restrict picnic tables.
No,
Yes.
it's if it's an association with expanding your business. You can't use it to put product or additional
Thank you.
cookers
That's
or stuff.
what I recall.
But they can have it for recreational customer usage, but if they're using it to expand their business, that was the prohibition. So
Thank you,
I believe
Chair.
he's mistaken on that.
So that's all I've got.
Anybody else want to speak to this? We've got a 5-minute rule for each speaker, and we let you have a couple of minutes extra. We're going to read this again next month. I don't really want to go through it again tonight.
Mayor,
Mr. Tripp.
on this, just for clarification of the process, you know, an ordinance typically takes 3 readings.
Correct.
A 60-day period. Normally, it can be done otherwise, but that's normal procedure. That's how it's structured. And even during that process, notes can be made, thoughts can change, ideas can come up. And at the end of that time, the ordinance can be revised. You know, just because we're reading an ordinance does not necessarily mean that we may adopt that exact document. Changes, I mean, we're on the street. I've visited your particular restaurant myself probably 2 times in the last 30 or 40 days. I mean, we're involved, I promise you. And you know, we all make mistakes and we do stuff unintentionally sometimes. And if anybody up here has done anything, I'll apologize for them, because I have the utmost respect for everybody at this table. And I sincerely believe that it's nobody's intention to be that way. But I say all that to say that don't get caught up too much in the words letter by letter, word by word, that's in this existing document, because it is subject to change.
May I make one comment there, Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Eaton, yes.
Mr. Smith, I know, and Mr. Harris, correct me if I'm wrong, I know at the last meeting when the discussion was made, there was a question, and I think it was alluded to here tonight that there would be grandfathering of those that are in a kind of, I guess you'd call it a semi-permanent area at this time. Is that mentioned in this ordinance?
Section 10L,
In which?
Section 10,
Okay,
lower
I
case
didn't,
L.
I didn't catch it, so that's what I was.
That provides
Okay.
the stipulations that that if they're in operation at the time this ordinance goes into effect, that they can stay in effect unless they do certain things, such as expand or move.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to say something, just for the record. Because of what I do for a living, I have chosen not to be involved in discussion on this matter. I will abstain when it comes time to vote. I don't offer my opinion. I guess I just said that. I haven't even read the paper. I read the ordinance for the first time tonight, and I will keep my opinions to myself.
That's an example of the way it's actually supposed to be done. Respects to you, Mr. Roberts. Anybody else want to come in on this one?
No.
Moving on then, new business 2, consideration of a resolution requiring a rehab by agreement 123 North Enid. Is there an update on that?
The person that was here last month has closed on the property. He spoke with him last week, and he had gotten all the utilities but gas turned off. He expected that to be off in the next day or two, and he would say that it was going to be removed at that time. I have not checked since that time, but with him in his unique position, I don't see that being a problem.
Yeah.
With his access to equipment.
Mayor, at 8:15 this morning, I was told that the house at 123 North Enid is gone. Taking up the concrete entrance drive, it will be done. Thanks. So that
All
was-
right, that concludes the agenda then. There's nothing to do on that one, is there?
That it?
Assuming that is correct. I didn't drive by there, but.
I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
I do too.